Hello everybody, welcome back to another of our RV industry updates where we talk about all the different things happening kind of in the news world and just on the inside of the RV industry, the stuff that as a general consumer you may not always have easy access to. And as I started looking through, I've got a slug of stuff for us this week. So remember, I will chapter mark this video so you can jump ahead or back or whatever to the topic that most interests you. And as we go through this, there's some very interesting stuff happening, some very thought-provoking things. I very much would like to hear from you folks. Let me know what you think about these different topics. Share your opinions, what you've seen, maybe regionally, what you feel. Anyway, what are we talking about this week? I'm going to give you a little frame of reference on what's happening with 2023 new RV rollouts, because I think that helps shape up and frame up a lot of the other things that are coming. And sometimes I hate being right, but I frickin' called it. And guess what, guys? Manufacturers' discounts are back, baby! Interestingly, you may not necessarily see a lot of that right away. What this means for you in both the new and the used market. We're going to talk about new market trends and used RV pricing trends in terms of what I'm seeing off of like black books and whatnot. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with fuel, because that affects everything, not just the RV industry, but everything. Also, industry shipments and how fuel's kind of affecting that. There's also, I tell you, one thing I am glad, because not all of this in this week's update is really super awesome and fun to discuss, and some of it, frankly, is very not beneficial as a dealer, but that's what we do. We put out that fair and clear and candid information for you, but a glimmer of hope. I really hope it's something that is more than just a neat little nugget, but something that shows as a sign of where the service side of this industry is going, and frankly, I feel needs to improve on. There was very sadly a tragedy that occurred, which interestingly may have a little bit of a snowball effect and may have an impact on what happens in what people call moonlighting, or like Walmart parking lot camping. We're going to dive into that a little bit. Also, a really big one, and remember, I'm chapter marking this, so if you want to skip to the end of the video to catch this, that's great. I would ask that you jump back to the beginning and see the rest of the stuff. But California putting in new rules and regulations, basically banning the sale essentially of combustion vehicles. Not immediately, over time. Really curious to know what people think about that and what that might mean for the RV industry. And then one last quick little update, because I've talked about it a few times. Despite roaming well above the surface of the Earth, Starlink has hit a little bit of a roadblock. All that and more in today's industry update series. Stay tuned. And as we go through this, like I said, a lot of the information in this video is not beneficial to us as dealerships. If you appreciate the candor, the transparency, the information, please hit that subscribe button, like our video, leave me a note that says thanks nerd. I do appreciate when I get those, by the way. But kicking things off here, what am I seeing for the 2023 rollout? Basically, I just kind of want to offer a confirmation of what I've been predicting has essentially been exactly what's happened. It is not a clean break model year. Like, there are 2023 VIN models out there that don't necessarily have all of the updates that manufacturers are specifically intending for 23s. The general trend I'm hearing from most manufacturers is that, beginning in September, roughly by about the second week of September, they should pretty much have all of their updates done and in place. There's a few brands that are mostly updated, but maybe haven't started getting the new stabilizer jacks from the chassis supplier or something like that. But for the most part, we are now seeing 2023s being built with some level of update, but in many cases not fully all the way there yet. The good news is that for the most part, the things that aren't done tend to be rather small, not really affecting your day, not really affecting the cost of the RV in any specific way. But keep in mind, especially as this footage ages, let's say you're gathering information now because you want to actually do your shopping, say in Q1 of next year, show season or whatever the case may be. Keep in mind that what a dealer has on the grounds may not be identical. They might have 6 copies of that camper right there, but all 6 may not be identical. So be extra vigilant and verifying what you're getting for your money. Asking the if you're buying over the internet, if you're not buying in person, if you haven't been able to physically review it, saying, listen, I know you have nice pictures on your website, but can you walk out there with your phone and get me some pictures or a quick video of the exact camper you're looking for? And frankly, if nothing else, I think that's a really good way to smoke out a dealership that's willing to do some extra work for you, because if they're not willing to do some work for you on the front side, pretty much guaranteed they're not going to be willing to do any work for you on the back side of things. God forbid you need service work. And I called it. I said manufacturer discounts are going to be back, baby. And guess what? Manufacturer discounts are back, baby. But what does that mean? So, I've talked about in my previous updates how material costs had gone back to roughly pre-COVID levels, yet invoices from the manufacturers to dealerships really hadn't changed. Kind of funny how that worked out. The thing that's happening here is manufacturers were building like crazy until dealerships basically went, stop in the name of love, and like told them, my lots are full, stop sending me stuff. Well, as I kind of predicted, to help make sure that their business keeps a turning, manufacturers have these new discount plans in, but not only are they offering various sort of like traditional manufacturer to dealership discounts, I am seeing some crazy things happen. You're seeing manufacturers offering these direct to customer like rebates out there. Now keep in mind, manufacturer rebates are one of those things, the way that this industry works, if a manufacturer offers a rebate, it has to apply and be offered by every dealership. There's no like exclusivity there. However, what is happening is a little bit of background dealing, and it's maybe a little bit early to say that we might be looking at the precursor to something of like an industry price point reset, but it's not to say that like there's some serious indication that might be happening. Like there's some instances in certain segments where manufacturers had just way overproduced certain things, like say fifth wheel toy haulers that are not the high volume mover that like a half-ton towable little camper might be. Well, manufacturers that just kept building, and didn't have any of these sold to dealerships, but kept making more, and had this huge lot full of stuff. Like anyone who lives in northern Indiana around Elkhart County has probably seen it. And I'm not talking about shippers lots, where these are, where it's a unit that's actually sold to a dealership or to a customer, it's getting sent to its final destination. I'm talking manufacturers lots packed full of RVs that are not sold to anybody, and they just kept building more, and now they want to build more on top of that. Well, what happened was they got packed full of 2022s on their lots that were unsold, and then started producing 23s on top of it.
We got a problem here.
And word is there are some kind of backroom handshake deals potentially happening out there to the tunes of many, many thousands of dollars per copy of camper in a manufacturer's yard. And what I suspect would happen, just based on years of experience doing this, and I have no direct confirmation of this right now, mind you, I know how this stuff plays out, pretty much. You're going to see a couple big RV groups gobble this stuff up like crazy, and suddenly you're going to see some big things coming in, 10, 15,000, I don't know, some of these big things, below where you had seen them over the last year or two, which, by extension, first of all, that's awesome for you customers. It's going to hurt some dealerships who aren't part of that, which is sad because there's a lot of people employed at a lot of places like that. But it is also potentially going to force the rest of the industry to get drugged down, maybe not to that exact same price point, but to something close to it, enough to make people go, okay, well, I'd consider this instead of that, even though that's a screaming deal over there. Basically, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. There are going to be certain pockets of just extremely good deals about to become available out there in the new RV market. And what that does for the future of the new RV market will be very interesting to see, because what we're seeing in other commodities is, again, a little bit of a reset. And how everything kind of ends up and lines up, be very interesting to see. I'd be kind of curious to know if any of you had seen any of this in your little regions rolling out there quite yet. However, that all being said, what I don't believe is going to happen, I don't think we're going to see like a big, huge industry full reset in the next couple months. A lot of it is due to the fact that a lot of dealership lots are rather full. And again, these will be kind of specialized private backroom purchases that I suspect will be happening that'll only be available in certain select places. However, again, as it starts to pull the new RV market in one direction, I could start to see the average price over time in the new RV market starting to decline. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. It's just a prediction, but it makes sense to me when I do the math. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the average new RV towable price, the wholesale price, meaning from manufacturer to dealership. This has been very interesting because despite the fact that we've gone from 22 to 23 model year, and every time there's a model year change, there's always a little bit of an uptick in terms of the invoice cost. We have seen the average price nationally of all towable RVs thrown into one pot and melted down. The average price of a towable RV to a dealership has dropped about 5% recently here. That's a pretty big chunk, but I mean, with the way that pricing had crept up the last couple years, it feels like a drop in the bucket. But I'll take 5% off over 5% up any day of the week. The thing is, despite the fact that the model year uptick would normally increase the cost of these things, we're seeing an average wholesale invoice down. Couple reasons for it. I think that there are some brands that have taken this time as an opportunity to say, okay, look, our RV, the way it's equipped, is not in line with where the current market pricing, it's just not what people are willing to pay. So we're going to kind of strip down and reset our product a little bit this year to get it back in line with what people are really looking for, what they really, really need, but also what they are willing to pay. So that has brought some things down, but just as many, if not more, manufacturers have done a couple more upscale up tweaks and not scaled anything down. So for the most part, you think there'd be an increase, but for there to be a 5% decrease with no real official volume bundle update packages actually being invoiced quite yet, there have to be some serious backroom handshake deals being done to the tunes of a lot of thousands of dollars to skew something 5% like that. Interestingly though, that's the towable RV market. The motorized RV market, that's a whole different ballgame. I suspect due to the fact that motorized chassis supplies, due to things like chip shortages, are still, in shortage. The average motorized RV cost has continued to creep up. Actually, jumped up a chunk. New motorhomes, on average, running about 8% more now than what they were. So, hopefully, I've heard rumor that eventually the chip shortage will stop being a thing and we'll start seeing more chassis made for the motorized industry floating out there, but sure as heck hasn't started to happen yet. And interestingly, I saw a report from JD Power analysts who are kind of mirroring what I'm sort of seeing and saying here, where what they're predicting is that, for lack of a better way of saying it, the market is almost largely tapped out, and people are, there'll need to be a continued decline in average pricing for business to stay at healthy levels and volumes. So I do predict that to be a recurring trend coming forward here. And they also saw the same thing where motorized is just really holding strong, and they don't see that changing anytime soon. So what about the used RV market? Because I've long said, and I will die on this hill, that the pricing in the used RV market is absolutely bolted onto and related to the current value of new RVs. If a new RV runs more money, a used RV will similarly run more money, because basically the price of a used RV, the question people are going to ask if they're selling it is, how much less than brand new do I have to offer this to get it sold to still maximize my profits? It might sound like an ugly statement, but that's just business. Again, I'm willing to be candid about stuff. The used RV towable market recently saw a pretty healthy drop, and it has actually continued to taper down a little bit. I feel fueled by the fact that new RV pricing has crept down a little bit as well. But just like motorized, the used motorized market has actually gone up in value, and I feel it's just one of those supply and demand kind of things, because there just are not a lot of new motorhomes available. The used ones that are out there, if they're anything decent, have really held their value. So I suppose that kind of means that if you've got a used motorhome you're not really using, this is probably one of the best times ever to trade or resell it. Although if you plan on getting another new motorhome, it's going to be easy way out, hard way in. So if you're going to flip from a motorhome to a towable, this might be a really good time for you. Now, another positive note. You hear fuel prices are falling. And I think we all do the happy pants dance. That is something that we've all wanted to hear. The thing is, just like anything else, we saw fuel pricing shoot up like a rocket, but it comes down like a parachute, nice and slow. I'll take, again, anything moving that direction over up any day of the week. This is good news for a lot of things. This can help keep... people don't realize this. Fuel prices affect the cost of literally everything in our nation. Before I was an RV nerd, I worked in logistics for Yellow Freight. The orange trucks that say yellow on them, there's a story behind it. It's not all that interesting. I won't get into it. Maybe I'll leave you, if you're curious to know why the orange trucks say yellow, leave me a little comment and I might type something up. Anyway, basically, essentially, like everything in our country, whether it is a raw material, an in-between product, like a spring that goes on a car, like a supplier product, or a final finished product. Eventually, pretty much everything in this country at one point or another ships on a truck. The logistics industry, the truckers of our country, do not get the appreciation and the credit they're due, because without them, our society wouldn't be possible the way it is today. So the cost of fuel affects literally everything. So if the cost of fuel keeps creeping down, maybe that'll help ease some market pressures. Although I have never seen a fuel surcharge from a shipper to a manufacturer to a dealership and then, frankly, on board to a customer. I've never seen that repealed. I've never once seen a fuel surcharge dating back to when I started this business in 2009. I've never seen a fuel surcharge go away, even when the fuel prices went down. So who knows about that? One thing I am noticing, I don't know if it's just seasonal or if it is due to fuel costs, I have noticed an uptick in RV delivery drivers out there, which was one of the major problems facing a lot of things, and actually is testament to that. There's been like a booming surge in the number of shipments that have made their way into Canada, and actually I think shipments into Canada, the most recent stats that I have available to me were from like June, but shipments to Canada were up like 29% or something like that from the previous year. Now that might sound like, wow, is there like a Canadian surge in sales and boom going on there? I don't think so. I think what's happening is, as fuel costs have come down a little bit, and every year this time of year, I always end up meeting a lot of new RV drivers who I think this is the time where there's a lot of recruiting done. I think that a lot of people have gotten into RV transportation that maybe hadn't been before. And I think that what that's done is it's just created a number of people who are able to move things to different areas. Because although we're seeing a big surge in things getting into Canada, there was a massive backlog of things waiting to get into Canada. Actually, Canadian dealers were sometimes reporting something like an extra 6 months on units just to get them up to their dealerships, because there just weren't that many people willing to drive up there, and that doesn't seem to be the problem now. Interestingly, though, overall as a whole, as of June of this year, RV shipments from manufacturers to dealerships are down about 12%. And again, I've always just been willing to put that fair info out there. And I get that, down 12%. Like that trend, I think, is probably expected to continue. I think by the end, when the smoke clears by the end of this calendar year versus last calendar year, you will see that number probably increase. But understand, with last year being a record year, that still puts this year in like the top 2 or 3 in the history of RVing. Now, what's funny is I've been walking this way, and there's a couple in front of me who's been just moving, trying to get out of frame, and I finally caught up to one of the fellas over here. You'll see him in just a second. There he is. How you doing, sir? Go Detroit.
I've been watching your videos for a long time, Josh.
Well, thank you for tuning in, buddy. The thing is, where I have a little bit of a concern here is I'm glad that fuel costs are getting back in line where the RV shippers can make a little bit better income, because some of them were really just running on razor thin margins, and they're probably not great margins as it is. Like I said, I don't think the people who do the transporting in our country necessarily get all the love and credit they deserve. But if we see shipments continue to decline, that may end up putting some more pressure on that workforce. How it all evens out, I don't know. But here's what I would ask. If you are someone who's involved in RV transportation, any insights you're willing to leave everybody in that comment section, anything you can do to help me out would be very, very welcome. But like I said, I'm willing to share the good with the bad, and I've got what I'm hoping, and maybe I'm reaching because I want it or just personally desperately need it to be true so badly, but a glimmer of hope for the service side of this industry, which I've made no secret about the fact could be better, should be better. It's a hard thing in the business. Anyway, the NVRTA, National RV Training Academy, recently presented their Champions Award to Alliance RV for basically being a manufacturer who has demonstrated their willingness and desire to provide superior training and tools and resources out there for RV technicians and owners alike. And I am very glad to see that. I hope it's a sign that more manufacturers take note of this and say, listen, people are recognizing that technicians, that owners, that there needs to be more training, more documentation, more support, more information out there versus just sell another one, build another one, get it out the door. Dealership has warranty, they can fix it if they need to. Like, trying to get it right from the start and trying to equip people to fix things both at the dealership level and the ownership level. That is something that I hope more and more and more of that becomes available. It's obviously way too early to say, but that's definitely something that like Alliance has really earned themselves a reputation for, as being a manufacturer that is willing to put more information out there, willing to try to step up and support people who are being reasonable with them if the need arises. So, man, I pray that trend continues and that more manufacturers are able to start providing more information to more people, whether it's me, whether it's you, whether it's everybody. That is the kind of thing that needs to get better. Parts fulfillment in this industry needs to get better. Right now, that's like a borderline cancer to the RV business. And I'm hoping that this is a sign that people see that they feel that. Early reports, although they're not really out there, early reports is that Brinkley is very much in line with that. We'll see how that all ends up panning out with time, obviously. But hopefully, it's like a line in the sand and a change in the wind and some progression forward. If I walk forward anymore, I'm going to be out in the highway. Splat! And unfortunately, a recent tragedy, which has unfortunately claimed the life of one child and injured another, has brought into question the potential future of what a lot of people refer to as moonlighting, or basically overnight camping in something like a Walmart parking lot. And it's not just Walmart specifically, but that is where this story has actually taken place. What's happened here, for those who didn't hear this, there was a mother inside shopping, getting her groceries, trying to take care of her family, and her two young children were sleeping in the vehicle while she was inside shopping. And a RVer in the parking lot nearby had a hot propane cooking surface basically catch fire, spread, affect her vehicle, and unfortunately one of the children was pretty badly injured and one of them did not make it. It's sorry, I pictured my daughter for a minute. Anyway, this isn't about me. The question then is raised, Walmart could monitor their overnight campers. Are they doing enough? Now, currently, this moonlighting practice is something that is up to each location manager's discretion, and right now this is still basically all undergoing. There's no decisions made here yet. This is a very sensitive topic because it's something that is very near and dear to a lot of people that they really rely on for their recreation, but there is a potential safety factor involved in here that is hard to potentially dismiss or discredit. I'd be kind of curious to know what people think about this, but again, please consider the fact that there was a loss of life involved in this, and please, if you do weigh in on this one, please just be decent and respectful. I'm happy people can voice all kinds of different things they want in the comment section. I don't filter, I don't edit that stuff unless someone starts using terrible foul language. But this is one of the times I would ask that you share what you're thinking in a respectful way, please. I'd be kind of curious to know what people think about, potential, like a Walmart camp host or something like that. And I'm sure that they could do something like that, but that requires staffing, that requires people that they have to pay now. That could affect the price of your other stuff, knee bone to leg bone kind of things. What's your take on the situation if you know about it? And I guess, what do you think should be done, if anything, in the future? And if you remember back earlier this year, I reported on a generator ban that has a progressive rollout coming from California, and a lot of people were really up in arms about that one. Well, that's going to seem like a drop in the bucket from the fact that there is officially new rules and regulations coming to California that will ban the sale of anything but zero emissions vehicles, with the exception of plug-in hybrids, basically, by the year 2035. So it's not an immediate thing, but by the year 2035, it is currently slated that in the state of California, you will not be able to buy a vehicle that doesn't meet their definition of zero emissions. That includes Class C and I believe B motorhomes. So basically it's cars and pickups, but specific verbiage for those types of RVs are included with that. So all of your towing vehicles, your Class Cs, and then by 2045, Class A motorhomes will fall under similar guidelines, where unless it meets the definition of zero emissions as a Class A, which I'm personally not aware of any that do or even close to that, the sale of that vehicle will not be possible in the state of California. So what does all this mean for potential existing owners, or people considering down the line here? What are the long-term ramifications here? Well, very important to note, and I'm not going to dive into the full specifics of this, and if you have better insights on this, more information, please, again, feel free to comment here. Help everybody out. What I don't want to do is incite a panic. I don't want to freak people out. This legislation, these rules, basically are focused on the sale of effectively combustion vehicles, again with the exception basically of plug-in hybrids. What that means is that if you already have a car, a truck, a motorhome, you're welcome to keep it and use it. The question then, though, if everything is being pushed to the concept of EVs, electric vehicles, then are you going to be able to reliably find filling stations? Or as there's more of a push toward electric vehicles, are we going to see retrofitting of filling stations to things like mass charging stations? And the interesting thing there is it typically, even with a supercharger, takes longer to charge a vehicle than it does just to fill up the tank and head out. So increased congestion at these charging points. There will have to be some significant increase in various infrastructure to offset this. Not to mention the fact that currently towing with an electric vehicle does not tend to net the mileage that a lot of people are looking for the average traveling trip. Now, some people, I've seen some people report that they're currently towing with an electric vehicle and they make, multiple stops along their trip, and they've worked things out that way, and that's great. The way the average RVer operates right now, though, I don't feel like that's a viable option for the vast majority of people. And the other thing is, you're thinking, yeah, but I don't live in California. Why should I care? Well, consider that already 15 other states are considering similar rules and regulations. I've got a little scroll of them going over here on the side of the screen, assuming I didn't forget, which I've been guilty of many, many times. If I did forget to put the cool little magic scroll on the screen over here, leave me a little comment and I'll copy and paste a big old list for you. But this doesn't necessarily appear to be one, and the thing is, it's like I'm seeing states listed here spread out all over the place. So it will. This is a potential big deal, because this is almost a cultural shift, not just in the RV industry, but this has a much bigger scope, scale, and impact. Consider that electric semi towing, for instance, it's just not there right now, and sure, you could buy and register a semi out of state and then run it through California, but again, if you can't reliably hit filling stations, you can't make that run, and that could bring so many things to a grinding halt. It's a very, very interesting, shift, decision, move. I understand the motivation behind it. I'm very concerned as to the potential ramifications, and I don't really know how I feel about it in general. And again, I would ask that the comment section didn't turn into a Friday night Facebook fight. But I would love to hear from folks at home reading this, watching this, whatever the case may be, although the YouTube auto-generated captions that people read, they tend to do me wrong pretty often. Like, they say I'm from Vicious RV and all kinds of things, which is actually kind of funny to read. But I'm very interested to hear from you folks. What do you think about this? Do you think it'll hold up? Do you think it is the future? Do you think it's a mistake? I mean, let me know. And I don't know what or why, but every time I get ready to start talking about Starlink in one of these updates, I always find myself in this back corner of the property by the beautiful retaining pond over here, which somebody actually did stock with fish, but there ain't no way I'm eating a little mud sucker out of that thing. Regardless, anyway. Just total coincidence. I always find my way over here. Basically, Starlink had a couple little black eyes, one black eye and one bruise recently here, where they were basically shot down by the FCC on getting like an $885.5 million grant to develop, broadband internet to rural areas. Now, it's not just them. The same thing happened to a company called LTD Broadband, and the reasoning by the FCC was the same in both cases. They said, well, with what we've seen so far, we don't feel that if we cough up this money, they're actually going to be able to make good on the promise. We just think that we're going to be coughing up a lot of money. I suspect that, again, it's, Starlink, SpaceX, Elon Musk, all that, gonna keep moving forward, gonna find a way, and they're going to continue their satellite rollout, and I think that it's going to kind of happen regardless. I think they just didn't get an injection to help speed that process along as quickly as maybe some of us would like. I know that there's a lot of users out there that certainly would appreciate the extra satellites and the extra bandwidth that's out there. The other little thing that happened is, like, a year ago, a guy who's just like a tech wizard basically reported to Starlink that you've got a massive security breach in your stuff where, if somebody wanted to access your satellites, that's really, really hard. But only if they try to access it directly. If they modify one of your dishes, they can do it for about $25. And no one was listening to him, so he finally said, all right, I warned you. And with about $2,500 and some specialized know-how, he was able to modify his Starlink dish to basically directly access one of their satellites. Now, thankfully, this was a person who kind of does this. He finds problems and exploits with things and reports them to the companies rather than sells this information to the highest bidder. And to kind of help force their hand to make them apply some updates to get this fixed, he's effectively publishing the here's how you do it information publicly, which isn't necessarily illegal, I guess. I don't know the details on hacking stuff, but the fact is, I'm not super worried about this one because already Starlink's in the process of rolling out updates that'll, basically prevent this from being a problem. And before anyone has a big heart attack about something like that, consider how many Windows updates your computer has seen over time and how many different security updates have happened there. This is just the normal cycle of things, and it's a little more aggressive and obvious and violent in the early stage of something's technological life cycle. After a while, this gets fixed, somebody else finds a couple little things, and eventually I feel like it's probably like Donald Duck when he's in a sinking canoe where he's got like 10 different fingers plugging 11 different holes in the canoe to keep it from sinking, and then eventually they get them plugged up and everyone just goes back to sailing forward. And that's what I got for you this month. There were some other things out there, but I felt like I rambled on enough, and there were some big hitter topics here. And once again, if you appreciate how we're willing to tell you, hey, here's the trends in terms of shipments and industry and values and things that, again, don't necessarily beneficially benefit. At this point, it's already out of my mouth. It's like the toothpaste is out of the tube, and we're going to roll with it. Things that aren't beneficial to us here on a dealership level. But our commitment to you, giving you that transparency, helping you become a better, more educated consumer in any way that we possibly can. If you appreciate that, if you're new with us, please subscribe to our videos. And remember that this is just one of a regular installment of these. We have tips, tricks, and just a whole lot of RV reviews where we show you the good, the bad, with ugly, with everything in between. That's our general trend here. And I love that I get to, be at a place that allows me to share that information. I think it's very, very cool. So if there's been good information here for you, like our video, hit, leave us some comments on some of these topics. Say thanks, nerd. But again, some of these topics are very sensitive. They are also some of the a topic where I could see someone getting excited very, very quickly. I want us to always have a good, positive, healthy dialogue where everyone has a chance to voice things, but please try to do so on some of these topics in a decent and respectful form. There's no sense in getting somebody upset. Like, if you want to just upset a stranger, just get on Facebook and say, hey, I think I'm going to go put my cast iron skillet in the dishwasher for an hour. Like, that's a good way to just upset a stranger that's rather harmless. Let's not get each other worked up over something silly, you know what I mean? Anyway, thank you very much as always for watching. I really appreciate you folks. There's a lot of good stuff coming still. But again, if it's good, bad, or ugly, or anything in between, like I always say, I will do anything I can to share that information whenever I have the opportunity. So until next month, time, day, Batman channel, I don't know, take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy camping, everyone. No, I'm this way. And the whole reason I do what I do is for folks like you to come in. So if I can't make time for you, I'm kind of doing this for the wrong reason. Like, what do you mean you want to buy something? I'm trying to sell something over here. Yeah, you know. So, no. What's that? Was this in the video? Yeah, I am actually recording right now. Maybe I'll throw this in at the end.